Silence Dogood, letter number 12, September 10th, 1722. To the author of the New England Courant, Sir, it is no unprofitable, though unpleasant pursuit, diligently to inspect and consider the manners and conversation of men, who, insensible of the greatest enjoyments of humane life, abandon themselves to vice from a false notion of pleasure and good fellowship. A true and natural representation of any enormity is often the best argument against it, and means of removing it, when the most severe reprehensions alone are found ineffectual. I would in this letter improve the little observation that I have made on the vice of drunkenness, the better to reclaim the good fellows who usually pay the devotions of the evening to Bacchus. I doubt not, but moderate drinking has been improved for the diffusion of knowledge among the ingenious part of mankind, who want the talent of a ready utterance, in order to discover the conceptions of their minds in an entertaining and intelligible manner. 'Tis true, drinking does not improve our faculties, but it enables us to use them, and therefore I conclude that much study and experience, and a little liquor, are of absolute necessity for some tempers, in order to make them accomplished orators. Ponder discovers an excellent judgment when he's inspired with a glass or two of claret, but he passes for a fool among those of small observation, who never saw him the better for drink. And here it will not be improper to observe that the moderate use of liquor, and a well-placed and well-regulated anger, often produce this same effect, and some who cannot ordinarily talk but in broken sentences and false grammar, do in the heat of passion express themselves with as much eloquence as warmth. Hence it is that my own sex are generally the most eloquent, because the most passionate. Quote, "It has been said in the praise of some men," says an ingenious author, "that they could talk whole hours together upon anything. But it must be owed to the honor of the other sex, that there are many among them who can talk whole hours together upon nothing. I have known a woman branch out into a long extempore dissertation on the edging of a petticoat, and chide her servant for breaking a china cup, all in the figures of rhetoric." End quote. But after all, it must be considered that no pleasure can give satisfaction or prove advantageous to a reasonable mind, which is not attended with the restraints of reason. Enjoyment is not to be found by excess in any sensual gratification, but on the contrary, the immoderate cravings of the voluptuary are always succeeded with loathing and a palled appetite. What pleasure can the drunkard have in the reflection that while in his cups he retained only the shape of a man, and acted the part of a beast? Or that from reasonable discourse a few minutes before he descended to impertinence and nonsense? I cannot pretend to account for the different effects of liquor upon persons of different dispositions, who are guilty of excess in the use of it. 'Tis strange to see men of a regular conversation become rakish and profane when intoxicated with drink, yet more surprising to observe that some who appear to be the most profligate wretches when sober become mighty religious in their cups, and will then at no other time address their Maker, but when they are destitute of reason and actually affronting him. Some shrink in the wedding, and others swell to such an unusual bulk in their imaginations, that they can in an instant understand all arts and sciences, by the liberal education of a little vivifying punch, or a sufficient quantity of other exhilarating liquor. And as the effects of liquor are various, so are the characters given to its devourers. It argues some shame in the drunkards themselves, in that they have invented numberless words and phrases to cover their folly, whose proper significations are harmless, or have no signification at all. They are seldom known to be drunk, but they are very often boozy, cogey, tipsy, foxed, merry, mellow, fuddled, grotable, confoundedly cut, see 2 moons, are among the Philistines, in a very good humor, see the sun, or the sun has shone upon them. They clip the king's English, are almost froze, feverish, in their attitudes, pretty well entertained, etc. In short, every day produces some new word or phrase which might be added to the vocabulary of the tipplers. But I have chose to mention these few because if at any time a man of sobriety and temperance happens to cut himself confoundedly, or is almost froze, or feverish, or accidentally sees the sun, etc., he may escape the imputation of being drunk, when his misfortune comes to be related. I am, sir, your humble servant, Silence Dogood. Of all the topics Silence seems so conservative about, I didn't imagine she'd think a bit of the good stuff would be necessary for life in a proper society. But she argues her points well, and I can't disagree with anything she says here. A drink or two can definitely help someone overcome their nervousness that can cause them to be awkward or speak with a stutter, or not speak at all. But a drink or two too much can definitely undo an honorable character in the eyes of those who behold their actions. She doesn't mention women drinking, she only calls out men's behavior and tendencies, so I can't say what she thinks of women's drinking habits, but I don't think Silence hangs out with too many women, so maybe she doesn't know enough to have an opinion. She is a 16-year-old boy, don't forget. This has been Megan America, reading the letters of Silence Dogood.